Hello, everyone. It is such a pleasure to welcome everyone today to a new session of Paola's Studiolo. And my guest today is very special, not only because of his great talent, but also because of the fact that he's actually joining us from tomorrow. It is Saturday for everyone else, but for Greg, it's already midnight in Australia on Sunday. Greg, thank you so much for doing this so late in the night for you.
My absolute pleasure, Paola. Thank you for inviting me. And ciao, ciao, ciao to everybody. Lovely to see you all.
Greg, I have never had the pleasure to meet you in person, but I feel like I know you because I have been following your beautiful photographs on Instagram and Facebook. And your photographs are truly kind of one of those gifts in my day where I come to see what you publish. And you're so good to actually publish something every day. And one thing that I always think when I see your photos, I think of you as someone who gets up very, very early to be able to actually catch that perfect sunrise over the lagoon of Venice. So before we start looking at your amazing photographs, I wanted to just say, if you can maybe tell us a little bit about yourselves and how did it come that you fell in love with Venice?
My wife, Anne, took me to Venice in 1983. And as we walked out of the station, she said to me, "You'll either get this or you won't." And I got it. And I fell in love straight away. So we returned as often as we could, as often as work would permit. But then fortunately, back in 2009, I had the opportunity to stay for longer periods. And so now each year we come along and we stay for 3 or 4 months, which is, we feel very blessed to be able to do that. It's a wonderful thing. And we usually do this through winter because of the light, because we also wish to escape the Australian summer. And it gives us lots of opportunity to see the various weather conditions, which, photographically are fabulous. We love the city. It's, sometimes I think we see it as our first home as opposed to our second home.
Yes, I think one can never get enough of Venice, or you never get tired of the city. I have lived through so many very happy days, but also very sad days when I was in Venice, and I always have a feeling that the city kind of embraces us with its beauty. Greg, when you're there, where do you usually stay?
We have an apartment that our gracious landlords keep for us each year on St. Helena. Wonderful neighborhood, friendly people, lots of children running around, puppy dogs. It's about a 20 to 25-minute walk down to the Piazza San Marco.
Mm-hmm.
We do as many mornings as we can, weather permitting. And then from there, make a decision. Do we stay in San Marco, or do we go over to Academia or over to Dogana to catch the sunrise? Best light of the day, as far as I'm concerned. Perhaps only equaled by the wonderful sunsets that you can get from Castello, really. But anywhere around St. Helena or Via Garibaldi, you get some beautiful sunsets as well.
Greg, would you say that the Venetians, let's say the real Venetians, actually live in Santa Helena?
Oh, particularly in Santa Helena, Cannaregio, as well as other parts of Castello. Anywhere you see the washing, the laundry hanging out, you know that the real Venetians are there. But certainly where we live, we've formed some friendships with the locals. Absolutely.
Yes. Greg, I would say let's start on our tour. I think everyone is really eager to see your Venice. And if you would share with us, of course, your favorite spots, but also, give us tips as you go around on this virtual tour of Venice. Give us the tips of what we should not miss. I think it's going to be a really, really fun opportunity for everyone. So let's start with here. And do you all see my screen?
Yes, I've got your screen. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. So.
Well, I mentioned walking down to San Marco. And for me, this is one of the best times of day. So about 25 minutes later, here we are. In this particular one, it's at dawn, classically looking east. And frequently, of course, at this time of day, there's no one else there. The solitude, tranquility, just the peacefulness is wonderful within itself, even if you didn't bring a camera with you. It's a beautiful experience.
Yes.
Then if we move to, of course, what happens is very soon thereafter, probably about 30 minutes from that earlier shot, you have the sunrise. And there are more people around then, of course, but again, it's just a fabulous place to see it. Particularly in winter, the sun will come through the arches of the Doge's Palace. And that tends to make for a good shot.
You know, I think one thing that we're missing in this photo would be the street cleaners, right? Who are out maybe before the sunrise, who actually clean Piazza San Marco, which will be just to the left of these beautiful arches. For me personally, when I look at the Doge's Palace, I always am reminded of the other cities in Italy, especially, of course, Florence, that at the same time would be building these fortress-like structures, because, of course, it was all about the security and safety of the Florentine citizens, while Venetians are in such a period of peace, and they're so safe that they can actually do these buildings that are open to the outside and all the sides. To me, the building looks like a kind of the wedding cake turned upside down. So the spaciousness, the openness of this Doge's Palace really, I think, tells us about just the Serenissima, the most serene republic that was so protected by its lagoon that they would never be surprised by someone coming to attack. So really a gorgeous photograph. Let's go to the next one.
Again, this is sunrise light. To me, it's just perfection of light. And looking through the colonnade, again, of the Doge's Palace, where you've also got the two pillars in shot as well. From there, one of the things I wanted to show, as well as some of, I guess, my favorite parts of Venice, were also some of the different weather conditions that you can experience during winter or leading into winter or coming out of it. So in the following shots, you'll see some of these conditions where there can be a little bit of high water. That's probably the remnants of the high water overnight. Perhaps not as severe now as it has been, courtesy of the mosaic coming into play, as it has done. I was reading recently over 50 times since it began operation in 2020. But again, the gondola just make a great backdrop, don't they?
Yes.
Nice light behind it. And again, Paola, next. During the day, it's, I mean, a beautiful sunny day. This shot from the clock tower. And you can also see, this was taken in March, you can see the work that's going on around the Basilica, essentially to make it more waterproof. The piazza floods, or begins to flood at 85 centimetres. The mosaic doesn't come into operation until 110 centimetres. So what they're trying to do is to build up the both the stonework and also to put a barrier in so that the basilica no longer floods. Apparently, this work will also move across towards Marciana eventually. One never knows how long this takes in Venice.
You know, it's a noble attempt, that's for sure. And I have seen the scaffolding all the way around, and I was wondering what was happening. So it's really just one of the attempts to save the city from the water that gives it life, but also is a great source of destruction. And Greg, you mentioned mosaic. Just for those of you who don't know, there is a system that is put in effect that they can actually raise the barriers on the specific side in the lagoon to protect the waters from coming to the city. Greg, I wanted to say this is a very specific point. Where did you stand when you took this?
Well, this was in the clock tower, but there is a little balcony about 2/3 the way up the clock tower to the side. The clock tower is accessible through the Correa Museum. Tours are conducted there, so anybody can sign up for that. They take you right to the top where you can see the Mori, the ringers of the bell, as well as about 2/3 the way up, you come out to a little balcony, and that gives you this vista here, which is, pretty spectacular, really. It's a marvelous example of the architecture of the city.
I wanted to say I think the clock tower tours are conducted on Thursdays. If you go to Carrere Museum website, I think they give you the openings every Thursday. I think they do stop sometimes in the winter time, but so definitely check on that if you're interested to go and have this incredible view of the San Marco Basilica. Greg, can I ask you to just speak up a little bit when we go to the next one?
And of course, one of the typical weather conditions in winter is fog or nebbia. So the Campanile, El Perron de Casa, fading into the fog is again something that you shouldn't miss if you go there. A lot of people I speak to think, look, all I had was fog for 5 days in Venice, and you can certainly get that. 5 days in a row is not abnormal. But for me, that's just charming. I guess for a lot of other people, though, they'd rather have 1 or 2 days of sunshine as well. In the next one.
I just wanted to say that the bell tower actually collapsed, right, in the early 1900s. So what we see here today was rebuilt, how it was and where it was. The only difference is that they now have the elevator inside, which makes it very, very comfortable to visit the bell tower and spend some time there overlooking really the entire city and the surrounding lagoon. Greg, do you remember what was the time of the year when you took this? Was this like a December morning?
It would have been December or January, yes. And of course, if there has been a small aqua alta overnight, or even some rain overnight, you can get some lovely reflections in the piazza as well. And again, next. Because I also wanted to highlight that while an aqua alta of this magnitude would be unlikely now, that evening, it was about 120 centimeters. And if the mosaic does work, as it usually does, at 110, then it shouldn't be as severe as this. Of course, nothing like the Aqua Grande that occurred in 2019 of 187, I think it was, centimeters. This was, by comparison, a small one at 120.
Greg, did you arrange these 2 chairs or someone did it before you?
No, I organized the chairs, Paola. I promise I did return them back to the tables as well.
Yes, I think it's always magical when this happens in the piazza, all right? Well, it's magical if it's just a tiny bit of the water, but I think if it becomes so incredibly deep as it was in the last few years, that's really when all the trouble, right, starts for the city. But I love this, almost like the whole piazza opening up for us, and all of us become the viewers of what you see in front of you. So this is absolutely lovely, Greg.
Historically, as a selfish photographer, I've loved this, but of course, I think if I was a permanent resident, I would have been over it a long time ago.
Yes, yes. We will go later when we go through all the photos, we will talk a little bit about how it is to live in Venice actually full time and the challenges the city is facing. We can come back to that later. And I would love to know what you think of it. I love this one.
Yes, every now and again, less frequently these days. Well, this shot was in 2019 as well. It snows, and this particular snowfall was sufficient so that the snow stayed for a little while. Usually, when it snows, it washes away pretty quickly. But that stayed, and I don't know if you can see in the distance in front of the basilica, there's a little snowman that someone had made, which added to the atmosphere rather nicely.
Yes, what a special place to actually build a snowman. When it snows in Venice, I think the same for Florence. It's kind of one of those moments when everyone comes to outside to see what is happening because the snow never stays for too long, right?
That's right.
In Florence, of course, the problem becomes the traffic because everything is blocked right away. In Venice, you don't have, that's one less problem you have to worry about.
It's the foot traffic, yes. Which of course is one of the things I love most about the city is there's no cars, no vehicles. It's a blessing when you live with cars elsewhere. Again, this was a different occasion a year earlier, and it was an even heavier snowfall. That was fairly near the beginning of the snow falling, and it continued most of the night. But again, creates a wonderful effect. And I had to include this because it's one of my favorite doorways in the city, and the architecture is just absolutely breathtaking. Porta della Carta, one of the major doors entering the Doge's palace.
And it's called Porta della Carta, the door of the paper, actually, because what they would do is they would attach all the new laws, all of the news that the Venetians had to read. They would actually attach them in this area of the ducal palace. And then I just love the Doge who is kneeling in front of the lion, of course, which is a symbol of Saint Mark, the protector, or the protector of the city of Venice. And when the lion has the book open, it's a time of peace. If you see a monument where the lion is with the closed book, it means that it was done in the time of war for the Venetian Republic. Yes, just absolutely love this. Greg, what was the time when you did this? Probably just before the museum closed to public, isn't it?
Yes, this was about 5:30 in the afternoon. The doors closed very soon thereafter. In fact, I was surprised that they were still open at this time. I had the opportunity very recently to celebrate my wife's birthday, and we took a helicopter ride over the lagoon, and that was about as close as we could get to the Centro Storico, but it was pretty close, and with a sufficient lens on, it just shows the magnificence, the architecture of the city, I think.
Greg, tell us more about this tour. Where does it start from? Like, where is the starting point?
Fly Venice is the name of the organization. They fly out of the airport on the Lido. We took the 30-minute tour, which takes you right down the Lido as far as Chioggia, back over a lot of the islands to Venice itself, and then around over San Erasmo to Burano, Torcello, back to Murano, the other side of the city, and then back to the Lido airport. The 30 minutes goes so quickly. It was absolutely wonderful. The birthday girl had the front seat, of course, but the back seat still allowed for some pretty good photos. It was really good.
So it is only 2 people for the tour. Can it be up to 4?
Yes, it can be up to 4.
And only 30 minutes.
Well, 30 minutes is the long one, but they will do custom rides, I understand, but they also offer a taste of it, a 10-minute version as well, which just takes you to the near San Giorgio there to be able to see the city and brings you back. I highly recommend the 30-minute one though.
I feel it wouldn't be enough, 30 minutes. I think it flies by so quickly. I would want to stay up in the air for 2 hours and look at every church in the city. I mean, look at this beautiful, you can really see San Giorgio and the beautiful cloisters of San Giorgio Maggiore, right?
Yes, yes. I think there's a shot later on in the presentation that will also show you overflying our home on St. Helena as well.
Okay, okay.
It was quite a special experience. Away from San Marco, well, away from the piazza area of San Marco, still in the sestieri of San Marco, I thought I'd include a couple of shots of the various Rio, because again, the quiet, the stillness, particularly if there are no boats moving along. In this particular one's Rio di Sant'Angelo, or in Venetian Sant'Angelo, not very far from San Marco and not very far from Academia Bridge either. A particularly favorite part. You can see some of the old, I don't know how long it's been since that building's been renovated, but it shows its age, but it shows its character as well. I really love the light there. This is mid-morning, about 10:30 in the morning. Rather special.
And the water of the canals changes, right? During the year, the water tends to have different color.
Yes, it various shades of green. Yeah, absolutely. And also, of course, the light reflecting will contribute to that as well. In the next slide, it's again morning light, but quite different. This is the Rio de San Luca coming off the Grand Canal, and of course a favorite destination for one of the many gondola tours that you can take. Particularly these, I think these gondolas originate from the Rialto area. They come up into San Luca and then around through some of the other Rios in the San Marco Sestieri. Again, the light is what I think winter in Venice is all about. Very special.
And also, I love the gondoliers who really use the buildings around them to push, physically push themselves off with the gondola, right? As they move around. So they even use their feet or maybe a hand, the free hand to keep going, to keep this traffic in Venice going.
Very skillful. Another favorite spot, Potpourri Boutique. They've always got a display on the canal. It changes fairly regularly. This was the most recent one in March, and particularly colourful. I need to wait a little while, and eventually a gondola comes by. So that gondola is actually moving. This is a Rio. Well, I think I have it written down. Rio. Dei Fuceri, Rio dei Fuceri. Sorry for those who might want to find it later on. Not far from La Fenice, very close to La Fenice.
Yes, what I also love about this, well, the story is actually quite extraordinary. And as you said, they always do change their display. But I love what you also see here are the layers of the Venetian buildings and how they would actually build their palazzi. So on the bottom, they would be really just pieces of wood that would be holding the structure, and they would really make sure to put them as deep as they could in the mud of the lagoon. And then they would use layers of marble blocks coming from Istria, so just across the Adriatic. And there will be also layers of bricks. And then you see the palazzo itself. So here we really see just the water receded a little bit. But back in the time when this palazzo was built, there would probably be about 5 stairs leading up to the palace itself. So this is a very good example of just how much Venice has really sunk over the centuries, and how we're actually losing a few inches of the city as we go every year.
leaving leaving this San Marco Sestieri, we move across Accademia Bridge to Dorsoduro. But we can't do that without, of course, pausing to take in, I think, the best location in the city for sunrise in winter, where the sun comes up essentially between the Palazzi on the left and Dogana and La Salute on the right. And you will get some spectacular sunrise. Fortunately, because we're able to be there for many months, I can usually come away with quite a number of spectacular pieces of work. I've included a couple more shots while we're still on the Accademia Bridge. We haven't moved across to Dorsoduro yet, and we come in a little bit closer at water level this time. And then in the next one, we're back on the bridge again as the sun comes up. In early March, the first week of March, that sun will come up between the point of Dogana and Salute, and you get it coming up there. It's just a magical experience.
Yes, I see the light also in the windows of the Salute, which is just spectacular, right? I wanted to point out, we see the Peggy Guggenheim Museum. And you see it's a very low building. It's only one floor, one story, because the building was actually never finished. And this is the reason why Peggy was able to buy it. It wasn't complete, which makes the Guggenheim one of the lowest buildings on the Palazzo, on the Grand Canal. But it also gives it this really beautiful terrace for the events that they do for the members and for the donors. I think it's just absolutely beautiful. And then here is a Lake Forest University. And then right next to it is this Palazzo. In this case, it is under the scaffolding, but I think scaffolding is off now. This is Palazzo Dario. And this is one of the cursed palazzi in Venice. If you look through the history of the owners of the palace, none of them died a natural death. So it's always been just a crazy experience to the people who live there. So I think the palace is now up for sale. I'm not sure anyone will be making an offer to buy it, but definitely a sight to see next time you go to Venice. Greg, are your photographs touched up? How much of the filters or color, let's say, adjustments do you do to them?
Oh, every photo goes through an editor, Paola. I try to keep them as natural as possible. I try to highlight, and usually most of the editing is to do with balancing brightness and contrast as opposed to color. I don't like to enrich the colors. I think in just about everything you'll see, I was going to say this evening, but it could be morning or afternoon, depending upon where you are. The colors are the colors, but the brightness might well have been managed to essentially bring out, particularly in most cameras, the camera itself finds it difficult to differentiate between shadow and brightness. So to be able to balance that, interestingly, I mean, the modern smartphones will do that automatically, so much easier, so much better. But no, I don't like the use of filters.
Greg, do you actually use a cell phone camera, or do you always have heavy equipment on you?
Oh, no. I, particularly in the last couple of years, the iPhone goes with me everywhere. To take something like this, you will need a, in my case, an SLR camera, particularly if you're trying to do something that's got a longer exposure. Although the advances now in camera phones is quite extraordinary. They will take really good shots in low light. So at night time, providing you stand fairly still, you can still get a quite an effective shot. A couple of the shots later on are in fact with the iPhone. I'll try and point them out as we might get to them. But most of the shots so far have been with the Nikons.
Greg, did you literally become a photographer when you actually came to Venice for the first time in 1983? Or was this a hobby of yours before that?
Oh, and it's always been a serious hobby, Paola. My parents gave me my first camera when I was 15. And I think from then, trying to take photos of surfers in Australia. And after that, it became sports photography. And then it's just evolved continuously. So I was usually the one called upon to take photos at weddings, particularly for my daughter's friends. I photographed many weddings, but this is the passion.
Yes, I think in Venice is such a beautiful muse, right? There is, I think, no more magical city in the world. And just look at this beautiful Grand Avenue, right? The Grand Canal of Venice. I think one can stand on Academia Bridge and always, I think for me, every time I cross the bridge, I have to stop and just pause on the beauty. I think in Venice, you can't just be rushing from one place to the other. Maybe the people who actually live there do that, but I think for us to visit, I think it's always the moment to stop and just really do Venice, right? In Venice, you just do Venice. You enjoy what the city has to offer.
Once you're in Studiolo, you must go walk out to Punta della Dogana to see one of the best views over to San Giorgio, back to San Marco, to Giudecca. You can take in, effectively almost a 300-degree, I would think, vista from there. And of course, of the morning when the sun's coming up, in this particular case, I managed to get the sun through the lamp that sits on the very point. And the added bonus was it was a light fog out there as well, which filtered the light beautifully. And of course, the barca is moored there pretty much permanently these days. And that makes, again, for a lovely balance to the architecture of the buildings themselves.
Do you happen to know who owns it? Because indeed, I have seen it. They're parked for last 2 years.
No, it is, interestingly, we met the president of the foundation that owns it in our last stay, mainly because he also manufactures gin. His surname is Gin, G-I-N, and so his product is called Gin Day Gin. Highly recommended, apparently, too.
I love that in Venice, everything goes back to some kind of drink, right? That's what Venetians love. They start their day with a small glass of ombra and they continue on all day long into the night.
And from the point itself, again, that was the same morning, the sun coming up in the fog beyond San Giorgio. Just a beautiful sight. This is one of the places where you can just go and stop and think. It doesn't have to be taking it in. You can just take yourself to wherever you want to go in your own mind there. It's just a beautiful, beautiful location. And from there, you can then start to move around to the other side of Dogana. Or first of all, that shot's from the Campanile of San Giorgio.
Okay.
So just the actual point looks like from there at night. Well, actually early evening, that's about 5:30 in the heart of winter when it's already quite dark. Just before they closed the doors. In fact, I was ushered out of the building on that particular evening. Last lift down from the Campanile. The Campanile in San Marco, of course, gives a wonderful vista of the city, but my favorite is the Campanile in San Giorgio, because you can look back at San Marco and down the Giudecca Canal and across to Dogana, as well as out to Lido and beyond. Just an absolutely majestic view. All visitors must go there. Salute, of course, my favorite piece of architecture for a church. I love San Giorgio as well. but the dome, just the way the building sort of forms with, and I'm not sure what the technical terms are, but the parts of it that jut out but yet still form this wonderful sphere. And of course, inside the church, as many of you who have been to Venice will know, it's just quite different, quite unusual, very special.
The church is now under all the facade is now under the restoration. So we don't get to see the beautiful details. And it really is, you miss it when you pass by, and there's just really a beautiful photograph actually showing you what is underneath that scaffolding. But I'm sure next time when you go to Venice, it will already be down. It will be beautifully restored. But definitely a beautiful sight in the city. Greg, do speak up a little bit, okay? We have a little bit of a hard time hearing you.
Every time I came near the church in this last stay, I put the camera away. I refused to photograph it with those hoardings out the front. But hopefully, at the end of this year, it'll be fine. From the Zattere, which is, of course, the fondamenta that moves on the other side of Dogana, you get wonderful views back across the Giudecca Canal, in this case to Redentore, where there's a major festival, of course, every year in July. In winter, once again, the nebbia creates the atmosphere. And I think in the next shot, Paola, we have some artwork going on at Dogana. This can be a very popular location. In this particular case, I think there was an art class where a number have gathered. They look rather lovely too. But I just wanted to capture the event that was taking place. The other location where I frequently see artists is, of course, on Accademia Bridge, looking back down at that vista that we saw earlier. But this is another wonderful place to visit.
I'm sure if there's any artists with us, gathered today with us, they're probably just dying to get themselves out there and, stop in this specific spot, because you really can take so much in of the city itself. It really is a magical spot in town.
Coming back now, probably about 300 or 400 meters from, perhaps a little bit more than that, from Dogana, still on Fondamenta Zattere, you can get a lovely view back to San Giorgio, usually being able to frame it with, with the typical lamps, the Venetian lamps that are there as well. This shot again is not long after sunrise, so you get the golden light. Special time of day. There's been a little bit of rain overnight, obviously, but just a special light. I couldn't include, of course, photos in Dorsoduro without including the Square San Travasto, where the gondola yard, where they build and maintain the gondola. I understand it's the oldest gondola yard in the city. There's another Tremontin, which is not far from here in Dorsoduro, but this dates back to the 17th century, and also unusual for the architecture, which is all wooden, which I understand the timbers came down from the Tyrolean region, where some of the early boat builders came from. In this particular case, we had a gondola emerging, so I had to stop and capture that. Obviously, it just had some beautiful work done on it. Magnificent vessel.
It's incredible that this is actually where gondolas are built, right? And I feel that they use more than 5 different kinds of wood to do this. And every gondola is made specifically for the person that is ordering it, to their height, to their weight. So it's definitely a dying business. But I do know that if you do want to buy a new gondola, you can spend anywhere from 35 to 50,000 euro. So someone probably just had it made, maybe brand new. I mean, look at the details even here. There's actually seems to be a coat of arms, maybe of the family.
On the fellow, on the prow, the iron on the prow. Yeah.
Yes. And then just across from Lo Squero, Just across the canal, there is actually a beautiful Cicchetti place.
Oh, yes, 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 Osteria al Square.
Yes,
Very nice. Lovely Cicchetti, lovely vino, lovely people too.
yes, definitely. And I just also love, as you said, this architecture probably shows us how Venice looked like in medieval times. If you would kind of move from the Grand Canal in the inner canals, this is probably the structures that we would have seen back then. Not everyone would live in the palazzo in the city. I love this one.
The prow, yes. They have all the decorative hats on one wall of the square, and this particular gondola was just positioned beautifully, particularly with some of the reflection of the high gloss of the ferro. It looks beautiful.
Yes, the glossy part here, but look also where you can really see that this is probably there because it needed to be repaired and restored a bit, right?
Yeah. Yes, I think the paintwork still had to be done on that one.
I love this one. He's making a grigliata.
Friday afternoon barbecue lunch at the square. Yeah. We were fortunate to have an apartment. This is when we lived in Dossadura, that looked straight onto the square. It was just a wonderful thing. We would see them every Friday afternoon.
You know, Greg, if you didn't give us the date for this photo, if we were not talking about it, this scene could have taken place centuries ago as well, couldn't it?
Perhaps the clothing would be a little different, but yes.
Yes,
Otherwise,
yes.
yes.
That is what I love about Venice. You kind of slip back in time without the cars, without any reminders of the modern world. We really are just moving in the streets that were built and looked the same, 500-600 years ago.
Yes. Just around from the square, you can see it down in the left-hand corner beyond the bridge. That is actually the square there. This is Rio de Ognissanti in the afternoon. So the light there that can reflect is just wonderful. Fortunate to capture it that day. It's a really lovely area, and moving a bit further along towards the San Basilio boat stop, you've got Campo San Basilio. Snowstorm. The model there, my wife, was very patient with me while I took a couple of shots, and then we got out of there. It was actually snowing quite heavily.
That is, I think, the sign of true love. If she can go with you to these early morning expeditions or leave the house in the snowstorm just to be able to, for you to take a few shots. I mean, that's the sign of a true love, Greg. I think you were very lucky to find Anne.
Oh, I'm the luckiest man I know, Paola. Absolutely. But also the wonderful thing with Anne is that, once again, this time, Sambanaba, the Frutivendolo Barca, Aqua Alta, and we're doing some veggie shopping. That actually is Anne as well.
So she really is your partner in crime.
Yes, and my important other set of eyes, because so often there's a shot there that I haven't seen, but she sees it.
Interesting. And then look at this really distinguished Venetian man. I love that even though, they have these big, ugly rubber boots, they look so elegant. I don't know how Italians do it.
One of the lowest parts of the city is Sambana, but also, of course, San Marco is as well. So when it does flood, this is where it floods. Now, a flood of this, or an aqua alta of this magnitude, theoretically shouldn't be possible in future if the mosaic is working. Because this was around about the 115, and the mosaic should come up at 110. There will probably still be water over the fondamenta, but perhaps not to the extent of this. We hope.
What's interesting, on this same canal, just a little bit further down, if you're looking with your back, if you turn around and face the square, on this same canal, Cadron Hepburn actually had to fall in the water during one of the scenes in the beautiful movie called The Summertime. And she said when she filmed that shot, when she got in the canal, she actually got an eye infection that she never cured during the rest of her life. But if you love Venice, definitely The Summertime is one movie I would suggest to watch. Do you know it, Greg?
I know of it. I know of it. Good friends who live in Venice. First of all, when we were walking through San Barnaba, pointed it out to me. But I haven't seen the film now.
Definitely. It should be on your list this summertime.
And still in Dorsoduro, even when it's raining, for me, it's magical. You can see the spirit, the mood of the city. Some of the most important people in the city, particularly in a city like Venice, where fire can be catastrophic if it occurs, are the firefighters. So the Vigili del Fuoco, in this particular case, they're coming home. That's their base in Rio di Ca' Foscari. So you've got the university headquarters just to the right of that. And of course, that leads out onto the Grand Canal. Always marvelous when you see them moving around. As long as the sirens aren't going and everything, then it's some emergency. But they form a wonderful sight. I needed to include this mainly because I think it's my favorite window in the city. On Palazzo Stern, just near Carezzonico. And again, looking back down the Grand Canal towards the Accademia Bridge, this time in fog, which of course helps to make the shot as well. It's just a beautiful window that they usually light like that every evening. We get now, we're moving towards the next sestiere of San Polo, the Rialto, which of course bridges San Marco on the right-hand side with San Polo on the left. Just a magnificent piece of architecture. I can't get enough of photographing this. The challenge is basically to find different angles to do it and different times of day for different light. You've also got the Fondaco behind as well, which has been renovated, the old post office building, and the terrace on top, which can give majestic views back down the Grand Canal in both directions.
Part of a little bit of art history trivia, even Michelangelo himself submitted the proposal for this bridge when they were building it in the 16th century. But the guy, Antonio da Ponte, Antonio of the Bridge, was the one who got the project. Before this, there was always on this site a bridge that would actually open up right in the middle to allow for the passage of the ships coming through this part of the Grand Canal. And you actually see some people on top of Fondaco dei Tedeschi. It's a free access. You only need to reserve it by writing to them, but you can actually go all the way up and have this really beautiful view of the city of Venice. Oh, I love this one, Greg.
A sneaky view from the other side. Not far, of course, from the market, the fish market and the vegetable market. And there's a lovely Campo della Herbe just there as well, where you can sit out there on the tables, lovely cicchetti, and be able to watch the gondola or the vaporetto or the barkers come by. It's just a lovely, quiet, peaceful part of the city.
That is the thing about Venice. You can, it's just enough that you turn the corner and you can be in a very quiet spot and really far away from the thousands of people, pushing their weights through the streets and the canals. There are these pockets of, of quietness in the city. You just have to get away a little bit from the crowd, and I think everyone can find them easily.
And of course, on the bridge itself, in this particular case, just pre-Christmas. So you've got the celebratory lights, the stalls down below, very busy. Quite a vibrant time of year to be there for Christmas, or in this case, leading up to Christmas, and also afterwards for New Year as well, where we'll come to later on in the presentation. Still in San Polo, but away from the bridge now, Rio di San Cassiano. Again, reflection, soft light. Just looks beautiful. Rio di San Stin, leading to a sottoportico there. I'm captivated by the sottoportici in the city, the archways where you can walk through, and usually, of course, you've got residential buildings over the top of them as well. Very much a part of the character of the city for me.
So here's the sottoportego. Here is that so you can actually go straight through.
That leads into a little corte, yes. Still near the market there area. It's just the icons of the city in fog and a little bit of high water. The fish market. Don't touch Rialto. There's been quite I think a movement to try and preserve, to save the market there, which has been struggling for a number of years now, because of the diminishing population that live permanently in the city. But a fabulous place to go and shop of a morning to get down there. The produce is just beautiful, absolutely beautiful, fresh and beautiful.
It's definitely an experience to go and visit the Rialto market, the fish market, even if you don't buy any fish, just to see what they have. And in fact, they have less and less available varieties of fish there. I do know that the city also has a plan to build a museum, kind of have this Rialto experience, a museum on the top part, on the second part of the Rialto Bridge. I think it's still not open to public, but I know they're working on it.
Now this bridge, I love this particular location because I'm standing in San Polo, but I'm looking at a bridge that moves from on the left, from Dorsoduro, to the right, Santa Croce. So I've got 3 sestieri in one little triangle here. It's Rio San Pantalon. And the bridge itself excites me as well because it's more unusual, the timber, the lattice work on it, and particularly if you can get some reflection, the water is calm, sufficiently calm. It looks beautiful.
What is interesting too in the history of the city that many of the bridges were built when the Austrians came to Venice in the 19th century. They are the ones who connected the city for the first time. Before that, they would be just using their own private boats to go from one sestiere to the next. It was the Austrians that bring it, that series of bridges that we even today use and cross.
And again, we're moving this time from San Polo into Santa Croce. Ponte Canal, again framed under Sottoportico from Calle di Mezzo. But once again, it's that for some reason the bridges and the architecture in the linkages of the sestieri seem to be very, very interesting. Certainly they capture my imagination. But again, it's the archway that makes the photo. Another archway, I love archways. Another sort of portico. This is Rio San Boldo, Santa Croce now, and happened to be there and a gondola came past. So this was the iPhone.
Yeah.
the iPhone moment. And it does such a great job. I haven't edited that at all. That's just its own HDR function that balances the light. so beautiful.
So yes, all one needs a little bit of patience, and iPhone and gondola will pass by.
Yes. Now this is the same Rio, but from the opposite direction. Still in Santa Croce, San Boldo, looking back down at the bridges that we saw a moment ago. One of my favorite restaurants in the city. I had to include this.
Mine too. Hard to get a reservation, right? It's only a few tables.
It would be good if you know you're coming to the city to book it weeks in advance. That would be wise. To me, they do the best vegetables in the city. It's absolutely marvelous. Lovely people. And it's a beautiful area as well, looking back at the bridge there. I was there, I think this is about 6 o'clock at night, so it hadn't opened as yet, but still had the atmosphere of the neighborhood. Moving across to Canaleggio now, in fact, Ponte Triarchi in the Cannareggio Canal. This is a evening twilight, and unusual to get Cannareggio Canal still. So that was very fortunate that particular evening. And not too far away from there, on the Rio Misericordia, Paradiso Perduto is the restaurant there, another one that comes highly recommended. And the arrangements they make on their tables captivates me as well. I was there in the morning, so the customers hadn't sat down yet. But again, a lovely part of town. This I put in Ponte Mole in Della Rocchetta in Cannareggio. For me, this is typical of the steps that you find in so many of the bridges that are just wonderful Venetian architecture. There are a number of them in different parts of the city, but this one's always been a favorite. And looking back at Maria dell'Orto, one of the very special churches in Cannareggio.
Tintoretto is buried there. For those of the people who are gathered here who did my Venetian masterclass, we actually talked about this. This is his neighborhood church. He's there. His daughter Tintoretta is buried next to him as well.
And another famous church in the very distance there is Miracoli. Miracoli is a very difficult church to photograph. And what I try to do is actually not to get too close to it, but to try and get some of the other architecture involved as well in this particular sottoportico. Again, we're now almost into the Castello Sestieri, but this is a very special part of the city for me as well. It's beautiful just walking around there.
Yes, and Miracoli is really one of the most beautiful churches. It does have this miracle working image of the Madonna of the Miracoli, Madonna of the Miracles. And many Venetians still choose to get married there today. So definitely a part of Venetian life, even in our modern times.
Although this shot doesn't show it well, its facade is all marble.
Yes, kind of similar to what we see here too.
Special facades, absolutely. Giovanni Paola, Ospedale, the hospital, but also the home of the Scuola San Marco as well, the Grand Scuola. Just a beautiful, beautiful facade. You wouldn't imagine, would you, that a hospital could look like that?
I can even tell you, I took a friend in there she wasn't feeling well, and they told us, yes, she has pneumonia, she has to stay. So just imagine being in such a beautiful place. It's still an active hospital today. And then, again, the part is also a museum. So only in Venice you find something like this.
And from personal experience, we need to tell you, the Pronto Soccorso, the emergency department, they're very good.
Yes. I love Acqua Alta, this special Library. I mean, look at this, a special bookstore.
This is the secondary entrance on the side Calais. I haven't included any shots inside. You'll find those, they proliferate elsewhere. But I just love this entrance. I think it's just a marvelous way to access a bookstore. I think, if I remember correctly, it's pretty much makes the top 5 beautiful bookstores in the world. I don't know that I would describe it as beautiful, special, interesting, unique, certainly. If you haven't visited, it's a must visit.
And they also have a few cats, right? Who are kind of the bookstore assistants.
Yes, they are. That's right. And a character of an owner as well.
Yes, true.
The Lago del Paradiso, also with the restaurant Barbacani just to the right there as well. Another lovely restaurant. But this is one of the most famous locations near Santa Maria Formosa, the Campo. Now we move along a little bit past another of my favorite restaurants, Trattoria da Johnny, in Campo Gatti. We've got Rio dei Scudi. I love this just because of the washing that's hanging out. They're just typical Castello, typical Venetian. Adjacent is the Calais that runs off the bridge where that previous shot was taken, Calais dei Scudi. Some of the light in that Calais, again, typical narrow, fabulous architecture. Now, this is out of sequence because it should have been the reverse shot of Barbacani. This is how to dine al fresco in Venice beside the canal. And you'll see the table needs to be booked in, and particularly of an evening, it's a special location for a special occasion.
Where is this?
Again, in that's Ristorante Barbacani. It's in the Paradiso Calais, right next to the Arco that we saw a moment ago. So just off Campo Santa Maria Formosa.
I love this one. Here we go.
You mentioned the skill of the gondolier. The foot off the wall is one of the classic moves. Yeah. Home. This is St. Helena from the air, typified by the greenery, although this is a shot in winter, of course, so most of the leaves have fallen. But right from the buildings back to the lagoon, it's just green. And you've got some very different architecture to mainstream Venice. Most of St. Helena, I think, most of the buildings date from the 1920s, so far more recent. And you've got the Indigo Hotel, the yellow building there that sits just back from the point. Yeah. Which is the major hotel on the island of St. Helena. And of course, St. Helena is just adjacent to the Biennale Gardens, which are pretty active at the moment.
I love that the neighborhood is really different. You can tell that it was built in a different part of the history than the rest of the, let's say, main area around San Marco. But it looks absolutely delightful.
My next door neighbors, the cadets of the Morosini Naval School. Every morning, I think it's 7:45, you've got the national anthem played, you've got taps at different times during the day. And of course, when they're stepping out in their special uniforms and their capes, they just look magnificent.
Yes, and these kids, they're so young, but they always look so ceremonial, right, as they go around the city. This is just a great capture. So do you wake up with them, with the national anthem of Italy?
No, I've usually come back from I've come back from the morning sunrise shoot, usually in time to hear the anthem played.
So, Greg, when you do go out in the morning, how long is this excursion? Is it a couple of hours?
Yes, it wouldn't be any longer than that. I like to be down at the piazza a good 45 minutes before the sun comes up, because the lights are still on. You've still got some beautiful light emerging. The blue hour occurs then. And then once the sun's up, 15 minutes later, the light's gone. It's all too bright and not very friendly after that. So home, a coffee at the local bar, Gina's, and then and then perhaps breakfast and listening to the anthem being played.
Sounds like a perfect morning routine to me.
It's pretty good when you say it out loud. Very fortunate. This is sunset, of course, on the city, again from St. Helena. This time from the canal just near Arsenale.
And I love that you see how Venetian kids go around, and this is their way of transportation, right? Because they do have to walk miles and miles, even though they're so little.
And this time very near Via Garibaldi. So again, on that stretch of fondamente that lead to the lagoon, and the views back to San Giorgio and to Salute, just marvelous. Storms coming. That's actually a shot from a Vaporetto, just a quick capture, wondering if I was going to make it home in time. And again, this time a little bit closer to San Marco, from Riva Schiavoni, a special winter sunset. This is where a second set of eyes can be very, very handy. My good wife, as we were heading towards the Vaporetto at a good hour before sunrise, looked back at San Giorgio, and there was the moon setting, and it wasn't just the moon; it was a super moon, or I think it was described that particular year as a blood moon. And just a couple of shots off, and happily I got just one image that worked really, really well. But I wasn't even looking; I was looking to go to the Vaporetto.
Unbelievable. And look, it looks like almost like one more dome of the city of Venice, right? Just one more there.
Salute.
Lucky shot.
Oh, very fortunate, very fortunate. Carnevale, of course, occurs during winter in February. So I had to include a Carnevale shot because the city comes alive for a couple of weeks. Infusion of people between New Year and, well, really between the Epiphania and Carnevale, it's very quiet in the city. Not just because of COVID, but because normally it is in any case. But of course, it comes alive at Carnevale, and thousands of people come into the city there. Lots of color, lots of vibrancy.
Yes, it's almost like the entire city becomes an open door theater, right? I remember getting really expensive tickets to go to La Fenice, and it was La Boheme. And I was just almost drunk of all the beauty of the carnival. And I come to La Fenice to see the opera. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so depressing. I want to go out and just enjoy Venice. It's such a special time of the year to be there. And these people come back year after year, right? In their costumes, and they really bring it back to life. Even though the Carnevale, as we know it now, really started in 1980s. So it's very much a modern adventure that happens. Greg, I love this one.
The Babbi Natale, Christmas, yes. There is, in fact, a regatta of Barbie. This wasn't during that time. Absence of beards actually gives the shot away, but still, they were having a great time. I think this might be the last shot, because New Year the fireworks over the Bacino, Marco. I like to get the shots from Giardini, where this one was taken, just down from the Biennale Gardens, looking back at the city, you get the full vista of what's going on. Another very special time of year to be in Venice.
Greg, thank you. This was really beautiful to be able to see the city from the morning to light to night, to go through different seasons and end with this beautiful, spectacular shot of the fireworks. I think it just, it was really a wonderful gift. I saw that many of the messages were popping in the chat as we went on. Let me see if there are any questions that maybe we can share with you. It's funny that we have people really from around the world, really from all different continents and times of the day. Let's see. Let's see. Richard and Rosemary are asking, what type of camera do you use?
I use Nikons and Sonys. So single lens reflex for the Nikons. The Sony's a fixed lens. But as I've said, more recently, just to walk around the city during the day, it's just the iPhone. It works so well.
Okay. Question is, splendid photographs, Greg. I wonder if you're familiar with the book by the writer and photographer Richard de Cambrai, Venice, Frail Barrier. Like you, de Cambrai loved photograph Venice during winter. Do you know the book?
I don't, but I'll look for it now.
Yeah, it sounds, this is new for me too. I will definitely, this was from John Farrell. I'll definitely look for it. He juxtaposed his black and white photos with brilliant color images of paintings by Tintoretto, Titian, etc. I think you would enjoy his work, unless it was published in 1980s and out of print now. So interesting. I do want to ask you, Greg, if you would be so kind to maybe send me the list of the restaurants you mentioned. They actually happen to be my favorites there as well. But maybe I can share it with everyone when I send a recording of today's interview. Fausto is asking, what was the name of the point with boat on the left? Fausto, it was Punta della Dogana. It was a Dogana in Venice. So basically just across the San Marcos Square. Oh yeah, someone actually answered that question already.
It's the old customs house. Now, of course, it houses a museum.
Yes, yes. And what was the name of that gin? It was Gin Da Gin?
Gin Day. Day Gin.
So Gin Day, D-I-E?
D-I, I think.
Oh, D-I. So Gin D-I Gin. So Gin off Gin because his last name is Gin. Very interesting. John said the mystery novel. Sorry.
The gin lover in the family is shaking her head. I think I've got that wrong. Gin Day Gin, D-E.
Yes.
D-E-I.
Okay.
No, you were right the first time, Paola. Sorry, D-E-I.
Yeah, so off. So D-E-I. John is saying the mystery novelist Dana Leon has a wonderful book about the making of gondolas. Highly recommend all of her books, actually set in Venice.
It's
and
like
others.
When you read her, yeah.
Yes, definitely. Interesting, that I think that she actually moved away from the city because she couldn't stand all of the visitors coming in. Someone said delightful movie. Yes, about summertime with Katharine Hepburn. Okay, let's see. So yeah, the movie is called The Summertime. Thank you. I see that everyone was answering in the chat as we went on.
Paola, there you are.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You'll notice the stopper is still in it at the moment anyway.
Is this what you're going to have after we are done?
Either that or yes, a 1:15 a.m. spritz might be in order.
Yes, yes. Oh, Sarah Morrison said that it would be wonderful for you two to collaborate on a book. That's so true. Such magnificent beauty plus art, current life, and history comments. I think Sarah has a very good idea here. Wouldn't it be fun, Greg, if we do something together?
Would be lovely.
Awesome.
Yes, love, absolutely lovely. I think as everyone else here, I just see a lot of thank yous coming in. I think, definitely, Greg, your photos inspired. So if anyone wants to follow you, you are as Greg Vance Photography on Facebook and on Instagram. When I send a recording of our interview, I will definitely make sure to also include the links to your social media and also to your website. Anything else that they should be looking for, Greg?
No, thank you very much for those wonderful recommendations. I appreciate it. It's been lovely being able to show my photos. Thank you for your interest. Everyone who's come on board today. Lovely to meet you. And if you are planning a trip to Venice, do enjoy. Marvelous.
Greg, I cannot thank you enough. I know it's past 1 o'clock for you, 1 o'clock in the morning. So we should let you to go and get your sleep in. But I hope to meet you in Venice next time. And thank you for taking the time to share your photographs with us. Any special projects coming up? Any dreams that you have in your cupboard?
Well, actually, working on a book, certainly a book of photos, but just really just looking forward to getting back to the city in October, November. We'll be back and staying for a long visit.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you so much. All I can say is grazie and anche buonanotte to you, Greg and Anne. And thank you everyone for joining in. I will be interviewing a few more wonderful guests this summer, and then I'm lining up a whole new list of wonderful, exciting interviews for the fall and the winter. So I will let you know about things coming up soon. But I just really wish you a wonderful summer. And if you do head to Italy, Venice and Florence, of course, await. I would love to hear from you as well. And have a really fun summer. And I hope to see you in person in Italy, or if not, on Zoom next time. Grazie. Arrivederci.
Ciao, ciao.